You know how therapists can say that if you're not working toward a relationship, you're working against it? Well, that same theory can apply to climate change. We can ask ourselves, are we personally working towards helping the environment, or are we working against it? So let's talk about which actions can actually help the climate and which aren't so effective. Recycling. Many of us do it, but is it just garbage? Perhaps, says Christopher Jones, the director of the Cool Climate Network.
A lot of the recycling that we do does not end up contributing to reductions. We have to haul that material around. It often ends up in a landfill. Some of the metals that we recycle, those do end up in manufactured products. Metal in particular is very, very useful to recycle, but much of the rest of it, plastics and things, just contribute to more emissions because it gets shipped around and doesn't actually end up in products.
But the act of recycling isn't total trash.
Anything we can do to lessen the materials we're putting into the atmosphere and creating new materials is a good thing, but it's not the gold solution I would advocate for.
So what is? Climate offsets are a new climate buzzword. You may have seen an offer to buy an offset when you purchased a plane ticket or a product online. The idea is that you can offset the pollution caused by your flight or your package by paying for someone else to reduce or remove pollution, like planting trees or installing solar panels. But do these offsets actually help?
Offsets are not baloney, but they are complicated. So an offset works if you are absolutely certain that you're taking a molecule of carbon or greenhouse gas out of the atmosphere that would otherwise never have come back out of the atmosphere. You have to actually make sure you're pulling more out than would have happened without your investment, without your dollar, without that tree. And that can be hard to prove because, for example, let's say you say, well, I'm going to plant all these trees over here, and that's absolutely pulling out more carbon. But what if you did that in a place that was going to be put out for development, and so the developer just went someplace else and cut down all those other trees?
And in some cases, offsets can actually do more harm than good.
The important part about an offset is not to call it an offset, because an offset is kind of a license to continue your behavior. It's an excuse in some sense to, continue to pollute. And that is the danger, that people don't change their behavior, or maybe even there's what we call a rebound effect, where they actually do more of what we don't want them to do because they think there's a little impact of it.
So if recycling and carbon offsets aren't making the cut, what can? We can start by looking at our own personal carbon footprint.
A personal carbon footprint, or climate footprint, accounts for all greenhouse gas emissions associated with all of your consumption. So that's everything from travel, energy, food, goods, services. Anything that you buy contributes to your carbon footprint.
You can calculate your carbon footprint using one of these websites. The links are in the description below. To give you a little perspective, globally, the average annual carbon footprint of a person is 6.5 tons. But the average American's carbon footprint is more than double that. Most of this comes from the big three: our buildings, our transportation, and our food.
I often call it coal, cars, and cows. Those are the three big emitters. So if you can reduce your emissions from those three, then you're off to a good start.
Let's start there with coal. The U.S. is using much less coal than it used to. But in many states, power plants are still burning coal and natural gas to generate electricity. And this releases loads of carbon pollution and heats up our climate. So switching your home to renewable sources like wind or solar can actually reduce your carbon footprint by 1.5 tons a year.
Put solar panels on your house or buy into a community solar project, and then talk about those things. Talk about them with your friends and your neighbors, because there's a social contagion. We know that the more solar panels are on the roofs of houses in a neighborhood, the more likely other people in that neighborhood are to want to put solar on their own roof.
A lot of us also burn fossil fuels inside our homes when we turn on gas-burning stoves, water heaters, and furnaces. But you can swap those for more efficient appliances that rely on electricity instead.
And so switching out those water heaters, make them electric, have them use the solar, have heat pumps that actually are very cost effective in the long term and heat and cool your home can make a massive difference.
And in the US, new federal tax credits can help homeowners pay for all of these upgrades. But even if you're a renter, there are things you can do at home to cut down your carbon. These include setting your washing machine to a cold wash. It takes a lot of energy to heat water, so by switching to a cool wash, you can cut the energy you use by more than half. You can also shed carbon by turning your thermostat down 2 degrees in the winter and up 2 degrees in the summer. We can all make a global difference from inside our homes. Cars, our roads are clogged with them, most burning diesel or gas. Now, living car-free can reduce your carbon footprint by about 2 tons a year, but for many of us, that's just not possible. But does swapping out your current car for an electric one really make a difference?
It absolutely makes a difference because you're no longer dependent on fossil fuels and you're not adding additional fossil fuels just through the consumption of your car. Now, of course, how you charge your car is really going to influence how much difference that car is making. So if I had an electric vehicle and I charged it at home and my energy is coming from solar, huge difference, right? I just eliminated all of my carbon footprint from my transportation. And if everybody did that, it would make a massive difference.
So driving an electric vehicle can lower your carbon footprint by about 1 ton per year and save you money. And talking about the actions you're taking is even better.
One of the best ways we can make progress on climate is talking about it and communicating more about it. So that's what's going to change human behavior, and that's what we need to do.
You know, we got an electric car. We talk about it. We show it to people. We let our neighbors drive it. That's a way to expand what you do beyond your own little life.
Now to the cows. About 1/3 of the world's carbon pollution is linked to the food we eat.
In food consumption, the things to think about are, 1, how did your food get to where you are purchasing it? Did it get trucked in from halfway across the country? Did it get flown up from Chile in the middle of winter when you're sitting in New York? That adds to your carbon footprint. 100% what you eat can really impact your carbon footprint. There are some more carbon intensive foods. Meats are often in that category.
Cattle are the #1 agriculture-related source of climate warming gases. Just one cow belches out about 220 pounds of methane each year, and methane is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide in warming the planet. So consuming less red meat and dairy is the most straightforward way to lower your carbon footprint. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, to avoid a 2 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures, the average global footprint needs to drop to under 2 tons per year by 2050. So it's important to think bigger than just you. Joining with others, using your voice and using your vote multiplies your impact.
But every vote counts. And as much as it doesn't feel as satisfying as going solar or buying an electric car, it's a hugely important thing to do because so much of the revolution that we need to see to mitigate climate is going to be driven by political incentives and probably regulations over time. And that will only happen if we have governments that think about climate change.
We need to realize that this problem is not going to be solved voluntarily by individual action. It's going to take larger system change. We can be part of that change. A system is made up of people.
Just knowing people are aware that every action matters, I think gets us steps closer to where we go, but also it's fulfilling to know that you can help be part of the solution.
We all have a carbon footprint. It may be big or small. The number matters less than what you're doing about it. Live your life with the climate in mind and know you can make a big difference. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel.